So Kyrie Irving is one of the best shooters in the league. He's one of the only guys that can hang 50 points at any point in time. And part of that is because he's such a good shooter. So today what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through a lot of the mechanics that he uses on his jumper and see if there are things that you can add to your game. Now with this, you want to make sure that you're not adding everything all at once. That's a recipe for disaster. If you try to take all of these tips and tricks and add them at the same time, many times it makes it hard. So what I want you to do is pick out one or two of these things, see if they help you out, and then come back to the video later and then maybe pick up another couple. That's kind of the best way to kind of improve your jumper as fast as you possibly can. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how he has his feet on his jumper. Now most of the time he has what we call a turn to his feet, meaning his toes aren't 10 toes to the rim. That's kind of that old school method of shooting that a lot of older coaches coach. But really Kyrie tilts his feet just slightly off to the side. That way when he's getting ready to shoot, his shooting shoulder, elbow, and hip are all in alignment with the basket. And this is something that a lot of elite shooters do, guys like Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, right? So turning your feet are going to help a lot. Now one kind of micro mechanic that I like to talk about that he does is when he's moving to his right hand side. Because if you're getting ready to shoot a pull-up and you're moving towards your shooting hand, a lot of times it's really hard to get your feet turned around, right? Especially if you got a defender riding you pretty hard. So what Kyrie does a lot of times is he uses what we call a leg drift. So as he jumps into his shot, going to his right, if his feet are too squared, as he releases the ball, he lets his right leg come forward just a little bit, and then that kind of balances him back out and releases the tension in his shoulder and his neck, just what it would do if his feet were originally turned. So kind of what's nice about this is you can use a different amount of it depending on how fast you're moving. If he's moving really fast off of the dribble, you'll notice that a lot of times he uses a big leg drift, kind of counterbalance his weight as he's moving. But if he's just moving kind of slow off the dribble, it's probably a smaller leg drift. Now a lot of coaches don't like this because they consider it a fadeaway, but it's really not a fadeaway. You're just using that leg as a counterbalance. And as long as your shoulders aren't dropping backwards very far, it won't consist as a fadeaway and it will help you out. So think about your feet. Instead of being square to the basket, if you can turn them just slightly, a lot of times that'll help you out. And if you're moving to your right, think about having your leg drift forward just slightly, and that will help you out as well. All right, so the next thing on Kyrie's jumper I want to talk about is how he's a smooth one-motion shooter. And this is an aspect that a lot of great shooters have, just like we talked about before. And basically the idea of a smooth one-motion shot means that the ball doesn't pause on its way up and through the jumper. Now you'll notice a lot of bigger, stronger, more athletic players, guys like LeBron James, maybe Kobe Bryant, a lot of times they have what we call a two-motion shot, meaning that the ball comes back before it goes forward. Now that's really, really tough, and Kyrie Irving's not that big of a guy, so a one-motion shot fits him really well because it harnesses all his upward momentum through his body into the basketball. So with a one-motion shot, all you have to make sure that you do is that the ball doesn't break the center line or the plane of your forehead. So if you drew a line straight up your forehead just like this, if the ball breaks that plane going backwards, it's going to turn into a two-motion shot. That's the number one thing you want to think about. The number two thing you want to think about is if the ball reaches your set point too early. So we talk about a set point as where the ball starts releasing from up to forward, right? And so if the ball reaches there too early, it's going to stop and it's going to pause, and it's going to make it so your upward momentum doesn't get into the basketball. So make sure that you have a delayed set point. And by that I mean that the ball wants to come up to your forehead right as your knees are getting ready to lock out and your feet are getting ready to leave the ground. If the ball can reach there right as your legs are locking out and you're getting ready to jump, you're going to harness all that energy into the basketball. But instead what a lot of players do is they get ready to shoot. Their knees are real bent, they bring the ball up to their forehead, and then they jump, and then they try to shoot. And while the ball's paused right there at the forehead, makes it really tough to get all that power into the basketball. So if you can, do what Kyrie does, and make sure that you got a delayed set point where the ball comes up to his forehead right as his legs are locking out. That way he harnesses all that upward momentum, he gets extra range, and he gets more consistency. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is Kyrie's shot line. Now, a lot of coaches will tell you that the best way to have a shot line is to have it come straight up your body and into your jumper. And that is great, right? A lot of great shooters do that, and it's something that I recommend if possible. But a lot of players aren't comfortable with that, and they like a shot line that's either kind of more towards the center or the opposite side of their body. And Kyrie's one of these guys. He's most comfortable if he can bring the ball a little bit up the left side of his body and then come into his jumper as he rotates through. Now, a lot of really good shooters still do this. Guys like Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and Kevin Martin has a really extended one where he brings it out to the side. Now, it's not really a bad thing as long as the ball gets to your set point at the same location. So what I mean by that is as you bring the ball up your side, it's all right as long as once you get to your set point, your hand's still underneath the basketball and you're moving towards the basket in a straight motion. Where this gets to be a little bit of an issue is on your shot line, if it's on your left or your offside, is if you're bringing it on the outside of your head right here and then finishing across. A lot of times that can result in misses in the opposite direction of your shot line. So be aware, it's okay to have a left-handed shot line like this, like Kyrie has, as long as your release is releasing straight towards the basket instead of off to the side. That's something he's really, really good at, is make sure that even if he's bringing it up the left side, he still keeps it nice and straight once it comes out of his hand. All right, so next let's talk about Kyrie's pit angle. What I mean by that is his armpit angle that his arm and his body makes. So most great shooters have something pretty close to what I call the triple 90, whereas they bring the ball up to their set point, they get a 90-degree bend in their wrist, 90-degree bend in their elbow right here, and a 90-degree pit angle. Now, it really is going to change a little bit at your elbow angle depending on your body biomechanics, right? Guys like Damian Lillard have a little bit shorter forearms, so their angle comes back a little bit more. So you're definitely going to want to check your own out. And really the wrist and the bicep angle aren't as important as your pit angle. So you notice that as Kyrie's getting ready to shoot and he brings the ball up to a set point, most of the time he always hits this 90-degree pit angle, so that puts it in the perfect set point. It keeps everything smooth, one motion like we talked about before. So what I really like to do is film myself shooting and just make sure that I'm getting that 90-degree angle. A lot of the times when I'm in a shooting slump, I'll notice that I'm bringing the ball too high and that I'm actually getting a wider angle than 90 degrees down there. So one thing you can always do, videotape yourself, take a picture, anything like that, and check that 90-degree angle and see if you got that perfect right there. That should give you a pretty nice set point. All right, so another thing Kyrie Irving does really well on his jump shot is he locks his shooting wrist early. Now in shooting, a lot of times the less motion you can take out of it, the better you're gonna be, and this is a great example of that. So a lot of shooters, as they're getting ready to shoot, they're bringing the basketball up with a really flat wrist, just like this, and then as they get ready to shoot at the last second, they cock it backwards and then snap it forwards. Now what's tough about this is you're getting motion at the end of your jumper instead of the start, right? You want to do all your work early, that way everything's the exact same and repeatable towards the end of your shot. So what Kyrie Irving does is every time he catches the ball and he gets ready to shoot, he locks this shooting wrist early on the catch. And so as he goes up into his jumper, it's already locked, ready to snap forward every single time. So this is a great thing to think about if you're having a hard time with your consistency, right? If sometimes you're on and sometimes you're off, this is a great way to kind of shore that up a bunch of times. So work on, when you're catching the basketball, catching it with this lock and flex wrist as early as you can. I've heard people say wrinkles in the wrist before, meaning as you flex this arm, you get these wrinkles in your wrist. And if you can do that earlier in your jump shot than later in your jump shot, you're going to be much more consistent. So try that out. All right, so the next thing Kyrie does really well is early targeting. What I mean by that is that he aims at the target or the basket as long as he possibly can. So you'll notice that when he catches the ball, most of the time, even as he's bringing the ball up into his motion, his eyes have already still found the target. Now basketball shooting is just like anything else that's hand-eye coordination. The longer you can aim at something, generally the more accurate it's going to be, right? So what you want to do is you want to work on catching the basketball, and as soon as you feel it at all in your hands, work on getting your eyes up early and then going into your shooting motion. I've heard that the best shooters in the world generally will aim at their target for about 90% of their motion on their jumper. So as you're coming up in, right, a big mistake you can make is go into your jumper and then find the rim or your target when the ball reaches right about here. Because now you've only got that split second to aim, right? So instead, think about catching it, eyes lock early, then you go into your motion, shot goes up. Something Kyrie Irving does, and it's something that a lot of other elite shooters do really well. All right, so now let's talk about Kyrie Irving's thumb push. Now, a thumb push is something that most of the time you don't want to have in a jumper, but a lot of good shooters actually use from time to time, and Kyrie's one of those guys, and I actually use a little bit of a thumb push as well. And basically, that's just the idea that your guide hand thumb rotates forward and pushes. Now, I don't highly recommend this. I highly recommend trying to be a one-handed shooter if at all possible, but it's the type of thing where you don't want to fix it if it's not affecting your shot. Kyrie Irving doesn't miss left to right very often, so the thumb's not really a big deal and a big issue. And if you slow the footage down, a lot of the times he drops his thumb off before it's actually pushing the ball very much. So a thumb flick's one of those things where I'm not going to mess with it unless it's creating negative results, right? So if I'm missing a lot of balls to the right or to the left because my thumb's actually pushing it, then I'll probably want to correct it. But if you're missing front to back consistently and you're not missing left to right very often, I wouldn't worry too much about your thumb unless it's definitely kind of changing the way the shot flies. All right, so now that we got Kyrie Irving's mechanics, what are some drills we can do that's going to kind of ingrain them into your muscle memory? So today I've got 4 drills for you that are some of my favorite drills to kind of implement these mechanics so that you can hit these shots in game. So the first one I like is called lock and rock form shooting. So it's basically just your kind of average two-handed form shooting, except for once you spin the ball to yourself and you catch, you're going to lock and rock your wrist 3 times before you shoot. So you're going to lock up and go 1, 2, 3, and then on the 4th one I'm going into a two-handed form jumper. Now the reason why I like this is it works on locking that wrist early like Kyrie Irving does, right? I get used to getting this locked in wrist and getting this motion into my jumper before I go into my two-handed shot. So I would get as many reps of this as you can when you warm up, somewhere between 10, 20, or 30. That's really going to kind of work on that transition into your jumper, even for that kind of one motion smooth shot as well. So just lock it early, rock it 3 times, and then generate the momentum through the basketball, shot goes up. All right, so now the next drill that we have that I like is called nutmeg shooting. And this works on that kind of early eye targeting that we talked about earlier. So all you're gonna do is you're gonna stand behind the 3-point line, somewhere in here, and you're gonna put the ball behind your back with both hands. Now all you're gonna do is you're gonna push the ball forwards with 1 bounce under your legs, and you're gonna catch in a 2-footed hop and spring into a shot. Now the reason why I like this is it forces your eyes down towards the ground, right? If I'm putting the basketball between my legs, I have to have my head down to catch it to know where it's at. So from here we're working on catching the basketball, and as we're hopping into the shot, we're getting our eyes up as early as we possibly can, right? Working on that early retargeting just like Kyrie does. So you can move around the 3-point line, do as many shots as you want. I would recommend at least 10 or 20 in a workout. But again, we're just working on that nutmeg through the legs. Boom, eyes up early, shot goes up. All right, so the next drill I love is the 1-leg lateral hop. Now, Kyrie Irving's really good at shooting laterally, moving left or moving right, and his mechanics kind of match that. So with this drill, it's really easy. All you're going to do is you're going to stand on 1 leg behind the 3-point line, or if you're a younger shooter, you might want to move into 15 feet. But anyways, so you're going to stand behind the 3-point line on 1 leg. You're going to spin the ball out to yourself, and then as it comes back to you and you catch, you're going to laterally hop sideways into your jumper, right? I would rotate each way, each shot. So lateral hop one direction, get your rebounder, have your rebounder kick it back out. Opposite leg, lateral hop the opposite direction, right? So you want to hop away from the leg that you're balancing on. Again, this is going to work on your shooting balance, going to work on that pop from your feet, and that smooth one motion coming out of your jump. Okay, so the next drill I really like is what I call figure 8 threes. Now, Kyrie Irving is kind of the king of handle, right? And he's really good at pulling up out of different dribble moves. So figure 8 gets you used to shooting with the ball coming out of a dribble move just like Kyrie does. So all you're going to do is you're going to stand on the 3-point line, you're going to sit real low, you're going to hit a figure 8 dribble, and then off of that second figure 8, you're going to shift your feet and spring into your jumper. So here we're thinking about that feet turn, right? You're starting with your feet squared towards the basket, and then after the second one, we're pop, trying to get that turn of our feet, springing into the jumper. Now, with each shot, I like to switch directions. So the first one I might go here, here, boom. Next one, maybe I'll switch the opposite way and go here, here, boom. So the idea is we want to keep kind of rotating opposite directions on each time we do the figure 8. Again, you can move around the 3-point line, try to get up as many shots with this as possible. All right, I'm Coach Colin Costello with Shot Mechanics Basketball. Thanks for watching, and until next time, splash on.